President Cyril Ramaphosa delivered his State of the Nation address speech at the Cape Town City Hall on Thursday. Much of Ramaphosa's speech focused on celebrating the progress the country's made in the past 30 years since the start of democracy. Now, many political opposition parties called his speech repetitive, uninspiring, while others said his reflections were a fantastical perception of reality. What do we make of Ramaphosa's speech, considering it could be the last one for his administration? And what's at stake with the upcoming general elections this year? Let's bring you some answers to some of those questions. A perspective from political analyst Professor Duvenhage. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time, Professor. A lot of reaction coming in since President Ramaphosa delivered his speech, which essentially made it clear that this is an election year based on what many have said he did not say. What stood out for you? Was it at all inspiring?
Morning, Paul. Yes, if I can briefly react to the context, I think the first point you have made, and that's a very important point, we have seen recent surveys indicating that ANC support has dropped in some cases to even below 40%. And in provinces like, for example, Gauteng to 35%, KZN 26-27%. So there's a real possibility that the ANC may not achieve an outright majority. That's the one contextual point. The other one is about the status of the State of the Nation address. In the past, the whole ceremony was held in high regard. It was really an opportunity for the president to inform all citizens where he would like to go with the country. But since the end of the term of Jacob Zuma, maybe also a bit earlier, we have started seeing high levels of instability, discord within Parliament, and also serious questions about the integrity of the leaders. And this implicated both Mr. Ramaphosa and Mr. Jacob Zuma. And if we look at the show 2 days back, clearly the people didn't buy in many things the president said. For example, he referred again to the battle against corruption, while himself was in ways implicated. Secondly, he talked again about a bullet train, and then he used many data, figures, statistics, which I believe was distorted and didn't present the whole picture. But on the other side, there's also an other side to the presentation, and that was his commitment to constitutional democracy, the rule of law, capacity building within the state, giving attention to infrastructure. He made the controversial perspective that he will end load shedding soon. At the moment, I'm here without electricity. We are at stage 6 again, I think the first time this year.
Yes.
So this is maybe the context of the whole presentation, and I can understand the reaction coming from opposition parties. What I would make, and that's my last point about your question, it was clear that Mr. Ramaphosa was using 30 years of democracy, and he overpresented the successes of this and underscore the failures, and this can be seen as an indirect way to support his party in terms of the coming election.
Yeah. I mean, you also recall, if we do a quick reference, that during his annual address last year, Ramaphosa came across as much more willing, I mean, this is what critics are also saying, to face reality head-on, talking about communities living in fear for their safety, and that this situation is one which cannot continue. And some have said that for a country like South Africa grappling with intense organized crime, Ramaphosa's address was perhaps flimsy in detail about how exactly the country's security structures will be bolstered. What are your thoughts around that?
Yes, without any doubt, he didn't give us any detail. He mentioned the problems and basically said they will give attention to it and so on, but he was in no ways clear about the more specific aspects dealing with things like corruption, like safety and security. What will they do in terms of changing around the situation on local government level, etc. So there's many points we can make. To the positive, I can say that he mentioned it at a very low-key level. The involvement of the private sector in keeping safety and security in South Africa, also their involvement in ensuring sustainable production of energy, and then he mentioned that his government will support small and medium businesses as a way of creating jobs. I think this side is a more positive side, and already the tripartite alliance reacted negatively against it. So it seems as if Mr. Ramaphosa, in many ways, is between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah. The issue of corruption, I mean, this was a matter which was also addressed. In fact, it seemed to anchor his address. If we have to do a word count, about 10 times in his speech, the word corruption came up. And he said further measures have been put in place to strengthen anti-corruption agencies, protect whistleblowers, and so forth. Of course, this part of his speech is one which was highly imperative for him to really iron out.
Yes, indeed. But if we briefly analyze the situation of corruption in South Africa, it is really a form of endemic corruption, as was unveiled by the Zondo Commission. And some of the findings of the Zondo Commission was the involvement of state security agencies in the form of state capture, and secondly, they implicated up to more than 1,400 senior people within the bigger regime or politics, connecting them to the ANC government. And that was primarily during the Zuma administration. Now, if you look at the progress in taking action against these people, it really, in the majority of cases, didn't happen. I think Mr. Ramaphosa referred to about 200 ongoing cases. But to complicate the problem, and we earlier listened to your program about the EFF bringing up the Phala Phala thing yet again, I am not 100% sure that the president is clean on the Phala Phala thing. And it became a slogan within the ANC and within the radical left of our politics to identify Mr. Ramaphosa as a very corrupt president. Now, okay, you can say there's strategy involved there, but this is limiting his ability to deal with this problem in a sufficient way. On the positive side, he referred to the independence of the judiciary, the principle of the rule of law, and that they are busy capacitating the National Prosecution Authority. But I honestly believe that we didn't progress a lot dealing with corruption under the Ramaphosa administration, if you are looking at the hard data and facts around the situation.
Yeah. What should we make of the EFF now taking this matter to the Concourt around Phala Phala? You mentioned that ex-poll question which we're running here on Newzroom Afrika. We basically give viewers 3 options to choose from in terms of trying to get an assessment of what to make of this move by the EFF. Is the EFF electioneering? Parliament ruling still stands, or must President Cyril Ramaphosa account?
Well, I think it is not the one or the other.
Yeah.
It is probably both of them. On the one side, it is the EFF using all opportunities they can to go for the president and to take him out, because they have serious problems with him, despite ideological differences in many ways. They have a problem with the whole bank scandal involving Floyd Shivambu and a few others, so they have problems on this level. And secondly, the election campaign is building on situations they are creating, and that is why they always use the State of the Nation address to create havoc so that they can end up in the media. And this time it didn't happen, but clearly there's an element of electioneering into it.
Yeah.
On the other side, from a legal perspective, we can ask questions about the decisions with regard to Phala Phala. And Mr. Ramaphosa's own committee, which he appointed and which commented to Parliament, clearly indicated that there is a case against the president, up to the point where the president was in the process of resigning. And then he was persuaded from within the ANC to look at other options, because there's a lack of leadership within the ANC on top level. So I believe there's still legal grounds for pursuing that case and take it forward, but there's also definitely politics in it.
Very well. Before we let you go, I mean, you make mention of how the EFF was unable to create havoc insofar as the State of the Nation address is concerned, of course, after that failed court bid. What would you now think the platform for today, with the EFF launching its manifesto, what type of platform does it provide for the EFF to really hit back because of having failed that court bid and now using their own platform to take stock of what the president said and also chart a way forward in KZN with this election manifesto getting underway today?
Well, their choice of a place, taking KZN in this regard, is very interesting, because we have recently seen the launch of the MK party. We have seen the MK party performing very well when it comes to a local election in the northern parts of KZN. And I think that the strategy is twofold. If they can make a strong impact in KZN, I believe this can do a lot for the image of the EFF. That is the first point. Secondly, KZN is always a province where there's a lot of political dynamics. It's also the province where I believe it is highly likely that we may see major change. And if the EFF can demonstrate a lot of support, they can most probably align with parties like MK and maybe others to see if they can oust the ANC in some way or another. So I think it's a sound strategic choice. However, the Democratic Alliance is warning that they believe that the EFF and the MK is competing in the same market. So it will be interesting to see what is the dynamics playing out in the Moses Madiba Stadium this morning and what will happen throughout the day. Can the EFF deliver on their promises? What is their election strategy and what are the main points of their manifesto?
Yeah, very well. Thank you so much for weighing in on this discussion. Political analyst, Professor Duvenhage, speaking about the reaction to the State of the Nation address and, of course, looking to see what comes of the EFF's election manifesto in KZN. Let's